All right, hello everybody. Now, you understand what strings are, hopefully, at least a little bit more now, and you have a decent understanding of what an index is, at least at an initial idea. Let's start getting into some of these methods I've been talking about in VB.net. I pulled up, and I will have for you a bunch of different resources where you can actually see all these different methods. Here's one from Tutorials Point that I will actually have out there for you, where you can see the different methods and so on and going through it, okay? Each one of these represents a different way. You can concatenate strings, you can copy strings, ends with, equals, blah, blah, blah. There's a lot of them, people. There is a ton of them, index of, and so on. There is actually quite a few that we'll go through here, okay? It's not my intention at this point in time to go through each and every one of these particular methods. I want to show you where they are, and then you can actually play with them at your will as you continue to become a better programmer, okay? What we're going to do, though, is kind of talk about some of the more common ones that you would actually use, especially coming up in your assignments and going forward. Meaning, these are the ones that I've used quite a bit, over my career in working with this. And so I created a document. Once again, it's there for you under resources for this week, where, basically these are the basic ones that I use quite a bit. But like I said, I'll give you resources for all the ones that are out there, and you can go play with them and try to figure out which one's best for you for that particular situation. But instead of being overwhelmed with this huge list, I'm going to pare it down a little bit and actually show you some of them that are, like I said, used a lot of the times. String length, so the length property, string.length. This is a method, once again, of a string. So basically what you would do is if I had a string, okay, this is the variable name right here of the string, dot, and you put the word length. And how this actually would work would be is that you would probably have some type of numeric on the left-hand side, the equal sign, where you would sit back and say, int a string length equals string.length. And it will return to you the actual length of the string, a numeric length of the string. So the string, if you have in there to be or not to be, that is the question. I have no idea how long that is. Let's say it's 30 characters. That's what would return to you, those 30 characters. Make sense? I use length quite a bit. You will use length quite a bit, not only in this course, but for a long time in your career. Length comes in handy in a lot of different ways, and you'll see how that actually works. Okay? So what we're going to do is I'm going to run through these a little bit, and then in the next video or two, we will actually go and demonstrate these and actually how they work in a program, okay? So with that said, trim. There are times where you have a string, and for some particular reason, you need to trim off spaces, or any character for that matter, okay? And that's where trim would come into play. Sometimes you just want to make sure you're comparing apples to apples. Remember, when we compare, if a space is out there, a space is actually a character. And it actually means something to the computer. So if we don't want spaces there, we're comparing Bob to Space Bob. Those are two different things. So we need to sometimes make sure we remove the spaces. Trim is a great little method to do that, and I'll show you that here in the next set of videos. Trim start and trim end, the exact same thing. Trim actually trims whatever character you want. If you don't specify a character, it trims the spaces before and after the string. If you just want the spaces or whatever character you want trimmed before the string, you can use trim start, and of course trim end would be after the string. Remove. If I want to remove a certain part of the string, I could use the dot remove method. Notice something right here, this word start index, okay? Here we go. Remember what an index is, right? It's actually a numeric pointer to a location within the string, the relative location within a string. So I'm going to tell it where to start at in the string, and count would then be how many characters I want to remove. And so I'll show you an example of that. Best to show you examples instead of trying to describe it all. But notice the index there. You're going to use the index every once in a while, okay? in these pieces. Replace, for some reason, maybe I want to replace something in my string. Maybe if I have, Bob Nields and I want to replace all Bobs with Roberts, I can very easily just run a quick little method here that would redo that and actually take care of it. I don't use that very often. Every once in a while I use replace, but not very often. Insert. There might be a time where I need to insert things. If you remember the very first video of this week, I talked about inserting and formatting things for a social security number and a telephone number. This is how you would do that. Okay, I'll show you an example of that. Once again, notice the start index in there. So it's basically saying, tell me where you want to insert this at. Tell me the index within your string I want to insert it. All right? Index of. Index of basically is a great little method I use a lot. They basically can search a string for a particular character. Okay? You will use this quite a bit. Matter of fact, you'll probably use it quite a bit this week, where you're going to go try to find a character. Now, basically what it's going to do is return the actual location, let me say it differently, the actual index of where that character actually resides. If it can't find it, it returns -1. Okay, as you see, it has this piece in here called start index. Make sure you understand how to read this. This is saying index of, you got to tell me what it is you're finding. That's the substring. And this bracket right here means it's optional. That optional means is that if you want to, tell me where you want to start, what index you want to start at in my string. Maybe I only want to search the second half of my string, so I give it index 10, and I have a string that's 20 characters long. Does that make sense? But I don't have to. If I don't put anything there, it's going to search starting at the beginning of the string all the way through. So anytime you see those hard brackets in these pieces right there, this means it's optional, like trim. If you don't put a character in there, it will just do spaces. Same thing for those. Okay? So this means it's optional. Finally, substring. I use substring quite a bit to actually pull characters out. I can actually have a string, go get something out of it and stick it into another variable. So going back to our VIN, if I wanted to go get the assembly plant information, I would say starting on the index of where that is actually located in that particular VIN number, that string, okay, for the count of 1, I would bring that back, and basically what it would return is that location. I would stick it into another variable, and then I can go processing. What do you think? That's not too hard, is it? And once again, count. If you don't put a count in there, how many characters you want to pull off, it's going to pull off the rest of the string. Okay? Like anything, you got to play with this. You got to see it working. That's what the next videos are for. But these are some of the more common ones we would actually use to do a lot of the work we would actually use for string manipulation techniques. Once again, I don't want to dismiss all the other ones that are out there. I want you to actually go look at those and play around with those. But I gave you this list to make it a little bit easier for you to reference when you're doing your assignments and trying to understand this whole concept of string manipulation. And hopefully this will help by paring this down a little bit for you. Does that make sense? All right. So the next set of videos, we will then take this list and let's go play with it a little bit and actually show you how we can manipulate strings in a program. All right. So it'll be relatively crude, but you'll get the idea.